Welcome to onboarding, the essential sixth of reading. I'm going to repeat that. Welcome to onboarding, the essential sixth of reading. I am your trainer, LaQuisha. I am a trainer and implementation specialist as of right now. However, I come to you with 13 years of physical classroom experience, hybrid classroom experience, as well as virtual classroom experience. I'd like you to take some time while the music is playing and introduce yourself in the comments. What grade level do you teach? What topics are you interested in? What really brought you to this training? Go ahead, take a minute or so and share with me in the chat. All right, so what I'm seeing is a plethora of range of educators from kinder to college, and you're in luck. I've actually taught every grade level between kinder and college, whether that be online or as a resource teacher. I have helped in some way, shape, or form. I'm excited that you are here to get better with your practice of being able to teach someone else to read. All right. What do you know about the following items here? And I'm going to explain the PDF just so that you have a better idea. So just a tad bit about the science of reading. That means there's a body of work that has been collected over several years that tells us what we can do to implement reading with a group. Shaw is one of those pioneers in this area and developed this staging system many years ago. So above here, it tells you what the stage is called. So there's pre-reading, initial reading, confirmation, fluency, reading for learning, multiple viewpoints, construction, and reconstruction. Below that, you'll see roughly age ranges, 0 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 9 to 13, 14 to 18, 18 plus. Okay. And below it are what typically happens at these stages. So I want you to just kind of sit with that information for a second, but read a few of the pieces and type in the chat, what do you know about this? Write this down in your participant packet. What do you know about this? What has been your experience? Maybe your own, maybe someone you know, maybe your child. What's your experience level here? Okay. So what I'm getting is some of you were not aware of these stages of development. Maybe you were taught in such a way that referred to levels as in grade levels, but Shaw took the approach of ages and how things are presented to the students. So I particularly like this visual. Someone took Shaw's write-up, which was very just black and white and turned it into something colorful so that it catches the eye, is that because I have taught kinder to K, I've actually seen each one of these stages really be true to form from my experiences in the classroom as well as online. There are some times where maybe the age does not always match the stage, but this developmental chart helps me kind of identify what stage is a person on at that moment. So maybe they could be 13, but they're still at stage 2. And so now I can help them to truly get into stage 3. Or they could be 14 and still in stage 3, and I can help them to get to stage 4. Now, you are going to learn even more about those stages in this training, because that's some of the sub knowledge that you need. It's some of the schema, the background knowledge, but I'll also give you a little bit more as to how you'll be able to implement. What does this all mean? Okay. Now I want you to type in the chat, ready, if you are ready to get started. Okay. I'm liking it. This is wonderful. Very good. All right. I'm so glad you guys are ready. Now, take a look at the simple view of reading. This is another one of those terms when it comes to the science of reading. This is usually kind of the backbone of where people start to help you better understand. Gao and Turner did this in 1986 and then again in 1990, further confirming that this is essentially what happens when someone is reading. So I want you to just take a look at it, study that. Here, word recognition, language recognition comes together. What do you think about this? What comes to mind? What concerns, issues do you feel this brings about within you? Do you have a strong positive reaction? Do you have a strong negative reaction? I want you to stop, really just kind of think about that, write down your thoughts in your participant packet, and then share in the discussion with the chat. I'm going to give a full 5 minutes for this one because this is one of those things that relates to educator attitude. How we perceive this really matters in the way that we present ourselves in our classrooms. So I'm going to get my timer. And you have 5 minutes to really dig in, and we're going to discuss and pick this apart. So timer starts now. Educators, you have about 3 minutes left here And I'm seeing lots of great feedback, but I want to respect that time and just give you a pulse check of where you are. I'm seeing people say things like, this is how I read, so that makes sense. I'm also seeing something like, this goes against a lot of what I was taught in educator prep. Uh, I'm seeing a lot of questions about where does something like a developmental reading assessment fall with this simple view? And I will address these things in further slides. So just about 2 minutes left. All right, 30 seconds remaining on your discussion about the simple view of reading. Ten seconds. 5 seconds. Thank you so much for participating in that discussion. We have to dig deep in this area so that the rest of the training really makes sense. So I was hoping everyone got to a point of starting to think about, well, what did I learn in educator prep and how does that relate to what I'm doing on the day to day? And so I did start to see questions about, well, okay, if this is how reading comprehension comes about, then what about fluency? What about phonics? What about phonological awareness? And that's the exact spot where we all need to be when we take a look at the simple view of reading, because that's how we break it down to build the scaffolding so that we can actually teach someone to build word recognition, identify their language comprehension so they can become good with reading comprehension. So with that said, let's take a look at, okay. So think of it this way, okay? So the first topic is going to be your language comprehension. This is what is learned naturally. There's lots of research in regards to everyone has a silent period. So think of the stages of development, 0 to probably about 1 or 2. We get all excited about a baby's first words, right? And that's true for any language, no matter what it is, the language spoken at home by the caretakers, our Kevin, that's our first building of language knowledge. So you got it's learned naturally from what we hear and observe around us from a very young age. Okay, it starts. The world is considered a marvelous place here because that language development from 0 to age 6 is like phenomenal. The number of words that are learned and said just from the everyday environment is really amazing to watch and see. If you have any young people around you and you've witnessed them grow, you really observe this in a organic way. Word recognition has a silent period known as listening vocabulary. That's the one we build the most. Okay. And that's related to our language comprehension because the word recognition, I'm sitting in a chair, I call it a chair, but maybe if it were another language, say Spanish, they call it a silla, but you call it what your caregivers call it. That's a word recognized listening. Eventually you speak it. So speaking follows the listening no matter what the language, whether it's your first or your second. Reading and writing in terms of word recognition must be taught. They are not developed naturally like listening and speaking. Reading must be taught. Okay. So speaking and listening are the background foundation to reading comprehension. We need to build the first two so that we can actually become fluent eventually in reading and then by writing. So fluency is built at every stage. Okay. A child may say one word or repeat dada, mama, but eventually it's mom, may I have a cookie, right? They get from there to sentence structure through that listening and speaking and a lot of coaching, honestly, from the caregivers around them. Fluency, though, builds in stages in each part. Fluent reading comprehension builds in stages, as I showed you, with Shaw's development. So that leads us to, I want you to think about all the things I said on the previous slide, and I'll go back for you guys, for my participants in a moment. What's an aha moment when you think about those stages of development and the simple view of reading? Like really kind of hone in on maybe you've joined me and you're teaching first grade and you're like, oh, this is where I am. Maybe you joined me and you're for my middle school teachers, you're like, oh, now I know what thing my middle schoolers have missed. Maybe you're in high school and you're like, okay, wow, there is so much here that normally a high school teacher doesn't even think about, but this is important because now I know where my students are, where are they landing. So take a look here. I'll go back one. What was the aha that maybe came about after learning about the stages, looking at the simple view of reading, and really taking a breakdown about the things I've mentioned in regards to listening, speaking, and their role in reading and writing? Take a little moment, jot down some of your ahas in your participant packet, and I'd love for you to share in the chat if you feel comfortable with that, because I know sometimes we come head to head with some of our own misunderstandings, and now we have to like reformulate our thinking. So I'm just going to give it a minute. All right, thank you so much. Many people are telling me they weren't aware of the stages or they had never seen the simple view of reading. But there is more. As I promised you, you would understand those stages of development more and be able to use what you've learned here as you go back to your classroom. So take a look at this. I want you to break it down, okay? What are you doing well now that you know these things already? What's one thing? Don't overwhelm yourself. What's one thing you can improve on? And then I want you to jot down just a quick plan of action to change that one thing. If you want to get spicy, maybe you can add 2. When I was in the classroom, I was an overachiever. Sometimes I tried 3 things all at once. Don't ask why. I don't, probably wasn't wise. But challenge yourself using your participant packet. Think about what you've done well. Congratulate yourself there. Write one thing you can improve in now that you're aware of the stages and the simple view of reading. And make a mini plan of action using the rest of this. So I'm going to give it about 30 seconds. Let's get into it now. All right, now I have a video for you. This is a wonderful example of the simple view of reading now coming into a modern time. It's called Scarborough's Reading Rope. I'm going to pause my music. I usually use that to help us stay concentrated. And I'm going to exit out of this presentation, and I have a video for you. Go ahead, everybody, watch this here.
Another helpful theoretical model for the reading process is Scarborough's reading rope, which expands upon the simple view of reading. Scarborough's reading rope provides a meaningful visual representation of the process by which decoding, or word recognition, and language comprehension subskills are combined during skillful reading. The decoding subskills are each assigned a strand in the rope: phonological awareness, decoding and spelling, and sight recognition. Under language comprehension, we need to build these reading subskills: background knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Think of these subskills as strands in the reading rope that become stronger and stronger the more tightly the strands are woven together. As the language comprehension subskills grow and get stronger, the reader becomes increasingly strategic in their reading. At the same time, as the reader strengthens their decoding subskills, they're becoming more automatic in their reading. With increasingly strategic and increasingly automatic reading, skilled reading occurs and the reader can comprehend text. Skilled reading appears to be effortless, but a skilled reader has fortified the subskills of the reading rope in order to manage the skills simultaneously and automatically, resulting in reading comprehension.
I thought this video is the perfect mix of what you need to better understand what's being shown here. So as the video mentioned, skilled reading has all of these things essentially happening invisibly within the mind. Okay, so what does that all have to do with the essential sixth of reading? Well, the essential sixth actually happens to be oral language development, which brings us to that language comprehension. At every point when we meet or we use certain words in language, we've had some sort of experience with them that helps us best understand them. Okay. And so when we are teaching within classrooms, this rope, every time we build a child's or participant or person's word recognition just by showing them a word, we also need to build that language comprehension so they have multiple ways and uses for the word. So that means in terms of vocabulary, we needed to be a part of their listening, their speaking, what they can read, and what they can write. Okay. We have to build and interweave them strategically at first for the learner so that the learner can become automatic in the way that they use these processes. It's just like braiding it together. Okay. So these are the things that we're talking about in regards to Shaw's stages of development. We are the bearers, the holders of this knowledge and information. We have that power as teachers to actually teach these items. What does that all mean? That's what brings us to the essential sixth. Okay. This one is courtesy of one of my classrooms. As I had started my journey to become a literacy specialist and now an implementation specialist, um, initially in my first 2 years of teaching, it was called the Fabulous Five of reading, as you can see here. But in my um, in acquiring more information, reading more research, taking classes on brain development and psychology, and how to help those students, there was something else added from the world of psychology and brain development known as the essential six, which is what I just described to you. So if you look here, the picture doesn't have all of it in there the way I would have hoped, but I was happy I still had this picture because I've since gotten rid of the bulletin board. There's the phonological awareness, and it tells you about the hearing and manipulation of letters and sounds. So that's a stage of just being almost like print aware. So think print awareness here. Phonics is understanding that there's a predictable relationship between letters and sounds. Phonics does not always mean writing because this could be shown with letter tiles on like something magnetic. So I always like to give the example of I had a student, her home language was Spanish, but at school she was learning English, and there was a question of whether she should move on to first grade. This was when I taught kindergarten, and I said, I don't think she's going to have a problem. And since I was a new teacher, they weren't sure my assessment was accurate. I said, nope, I can show you guys what I mean. I brought over the letter tiles with a magnet, and I said, I think I said, mamita, mamita, show me k, at. She proceeded to pull the proper letter sounds and put them together. So then I said, can you change k, at to at? And she proceeded to change the C to an H. Everyone in this meeting agreed, oh, yes, she'll be fine. So just know that phonics doesn't necessarily mean writing it out. It could be shown in other ways. Now let's get to the other aspects of the original Fabulous Five that became the Essential Six. Vocabulary, as I said, you're listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Those are all types of vocabulary which happen to be language comprehension. Fluency is I hear a lot of talk about sight words, okay? Once you really know a word, it's a sight word, and so that's the bridge. Fluency is the bridge of these are the ones I know, and this is how I comprehend them. It's highly mental. It is the goal of reading, is to be able to use reading comprehension. Well, no matter what stage on Shaw's or within the Fabulous Five that you're working on to get a child to the point of reading comprehension, they need a chance to discuss it. So you got to have some sort of discussion strategies. Notice I have had stop points within this training for you to stop and discuss and think about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. What does this mean to you? There's a reason for that. I'm giving you all a chance to build your language development, both orally and through chat. So My point is, at every stage of this, so whether you've just gone over phonics and you're helping kinder and first graders with CVC words, or you're working with third, fourth, and fifth graders and you're starting to explain the prefix un and re, they need a chance to stop and discuss it. That's what oral language development, that's what brain science has told us, that's what psychology has told us is we cannot skip that component. And this was a visual representation of how important the essential six is. It's like it bounces around within them. Every time the learner comes to a new stage, we need to give them a chance to chat about it, to write about it, to think about it. Okay. So, in conclusion, the essential six is like the little bit of sprinkle of magic that helps the children, the learners, the participants move along within development. It's how our language is acquired in the first place, but it's also the secret sauce or the magic that helps them move between stages. So whether we are teaching phonics or we're coaching them on fluency or we're helping them better understand the different types of comprehension techniques strategic, we gotta stop and give them a chance to discuss it. All right, gonna take a deep breath. I want you to wrap your minds around all of that information and start thinking about some of those ways in which discussion can be brought in to the different stages. Moving forward, I'd show you more strategies specifically for implementation at every part of the original five. But for now, I know this was a great deal of information, and I want you to be able to absorb that. Thank you so much for coming to our training. I do appreciate it. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see you in our next one where we start to talk about detailed implementation strategies. That's it for now. Have a nice day.